We're ready to take some of your questions on today's Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. A lot of good stuff coming in from all of our loyal subscribers, who we like to call real ones here on the show. Speaking of real ones, Sixers, Heat, jockeying right now in the Eastern Conference standings, both looking to stay out of the play-in tournament. They could play one another in the play-in tournament. We're going up against the Miami Heat report inside the walls here of Chat Sports. March subscriber battle. Who could pick up the most subscribers? Heat right now with the lead, 439 to 412 for 76ers now. Let's get the dub against Miami on the hardwood, hopefully in the regular season coming up, in the playoffs if they meet. And let's get that victory here at Chat Sports as well. Maurice Dunmore, and if you're watching from Dunmore, shout out to the 570. What's the update on Joel Embiid? There's not much of a new update that we can get to as far as Embiid's status goes, but we did have this report from John Clark and more so just some intel from him, and then Bill Simmons talking about it as well. As we know, Bill Simmons, Celtics guy, but tapped in to a lot of organizations across the NBA because he's so well connected. John Clark with this on the 21st. This was 5 days ago. Joel Embiid is ramping up his workouts. He's on the court almost every day, according to Sixers head coach Nick Nurse. I've been told the hope is that Joel could be back in 2 to 3 weeks. So that was on March 21st. We're still looking at that early April type of timeline there, Maurice, and hopefully that rings true. This is somewhat of an optimistic report. I'm not going to call it that, but intel and insight from Bill Simmons. He said, everyone who I've talked to about this, who knows anything, was like, yeah, Joel Embiid's going to be fine. It's a 6 to 8 week injury. He's practicing and he'll be back. And the timeline seems to match up with what Simmons is hearing here. The date of the surgery, February 6th. 6 weeks out is March 19th. So obviously we're already past that. 8 weeks out is April 2nd. We're probably not going to get there because that's coming up here next week. This is the final week of March. Sixers' last game, though, April 14th. I'd rather see the Sixers err on the side of caution. No need to rush them back for April 2nd just to meet that timeline, of course. NBA playing 16th through the 19th. Hopefully Embiid is in full go there, and then the NBA playoffs starting on April 20th. How far can the Sixers go in the NBA playoffs if Joel Embiid returns? I'm just curious to see what type of conditioning and what type of shape he'll be in. That determines a lot for me. Hopefully it's past the second round for the first time since 2001. KZ, why do you think Paul George would be a good fit for the Sixers next year when he can't even carry his big three past an Embiidless 76ers? Well, first of all, it's the NBA, and anything can happen on any game. Campaign went off. Tyrese Maxey played very well. The Sixers were so desperate to get that victory, and they got that victory. It's one game in 82. Do I think the Clippers would be able to beat the Sixers in the NBA Finals or in a playoff series if they met? For sure, and I think Paul George would be a big part of that. Why I think he's a good fit for Philadelphia, they haven't had a good wing since Jimmy Butler. And don't tell me that Tobias Harris is that, because he's not even close to the player that PG is. Paul George can score at all three levels. He's still a plus defender. He could play on or off ball. That's good for the continued growth of Tyrese Maxey. I think he's a perfect fit with Maxey, and he could be a complement to Embiid as well. And last 4 years, yeah, he's getting a little bit older, which is a concern when you're thinking about giving him that money, but you're looking to compete for a championship. Joel Embiid's getting older as well. So that means, and that translates to, the championship window is right now. And going back to the health standpoint, the concern with Paul George, the health. He's been healthy this year. And a contract year, it's funny how oftentimes that's the case. But before the season, 56, 31, 54, and 48 games played shit. How big of a concern is the health and the age at almost 34?
Yeah, look, I've seen everybody in the comments. A lot of people are out on Paul George because of the age being almost 34, because of the injury history. But to me, when you can get a player the caliber of Paul George, you know, we've seen him healthy this year. He can elevate this team to new levels. You know, the fit is perfect. Again, like you said, since Jimmy Butler left, you haven't had that wing. And you need a guy who's 6'9", almost 6'10", can knock down the three, can go off the dribble, can go off the catch, can defend at a very, very high level still, even though he's getting older. I think that you throw those health concerns, those injury concerns out of the window, and you move forward with it, because you can't roll out another squad next year of Embiid, Maxey, and then what? Are you going to bring back Tobias Harris? Are you going to sign a DeMar DeRozan? There's not many options regardless this year in free agency.
Bring back Buddy Hield, who was 0 from 3 last night against the Kings.
This is your best option. You got to take the risk.
There you go, producer Chip on it. Do you want the Sixers to sign Paul George? We want you to be on it now. S for sign, P for pass. Share your thoughts with us down in the comments section like producer Chip and I share our thoughts with you. That's the point of the show. Audience engagement, because we know that you know ball. Justin Fowler, would you go out and reunite with Jimmy Butler if he decides to leave Miami and if we don't get PG-13? I think the biggest mistake that this organization made was keeping Brett Brown, Ben Simmons, and re-signing Tobias Harris and letting Jimmy Butler leave. And the regular season numbers, they're still really good, even though he hasn't played that many games. Under 60 in 3 of the last 4 years going into the 2023-2024 campaign. And this year, he's all about the body maintenance. You know what I care about with Jimmy Butler? I care about him just being a dog in the playoffs, him putting the team on his back, willing the team to victory, and just playing as though and performing as such that he's a top 5 player in the NBA. Because when the playoffs come around, he's one of the best players in the world. His contract, you look at it here, he's under contract with a player option 2025-2026, but one more year, 2024-2025, $48.7 million. You're probably going to have to pay something in this neighborhood to Paul George. The issue with the Sixers here, they have the most cap space in the NBA going into this summer. Jimmy Butler this summer is not going to be available, so you're not just going to punt on next year as well, because that's another year in which you're wasting a really good year from Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, whose injury history has been fickle, continues to be a little bit concerning. I'd reunite with Jimmy Butler. Unfortunately, I don't think it matches the Sixers' timeline. What would you do? Y for yes, N for no. It's unfortunate they let him go. Tobias Harris over me? I'll never get over that. This deal from Fanatics is awesome. This Chat Sports Sixers zip up. You can find it right now, 25% off at chatsports.com/SixersZip. We're not going to take you to some wild site. This is all thanks to our friends at Fanatics here. So use that link down below. Use it so that deal can apply for you. This is, $75? It's around like $50 right now. Tremendous deal. Limited time only, though. Chatsports.com/SixersZip. Say that 10 times fast. Christopher Matthews, why doesn't Ricky Council get more minutes? I think it just comes down to him being an inconsistent player, him trying to earn a role on an NBA roster. I think he has a future in this league for sure, but the numbers shooting have just been so up and down. Nick Nurse has praised him. He's complimented his game. I think Nick Nurse thinks that maybe he has a future in this league. Here's what Nurse had to say about him. He's done nothing but play hard. He's an opportunistic scorer, and he drives when he's got them, and he gets the glass, and he tries to guard really hard. So that being said, it's just clear that Nurse right now favors the vets, especially without Joel Embiid. You're dealing with some difficult times right now. Your roster's thin. You don't have as much depth, so you're relying on the veterans to try to get you by. Unfortunately, though, some of your vets right now aren't doing much. Nicholas Batum, Buddy Hield. Here's more from Nurse on Ricky Council. He's been very good. We did get an influx of guys back at that position that are veteran players that you're going to always probably ride those guys a little bit more. Pause from Nick Nurse there. But Ricky Council, I think now is not his time, but as a developmental piece on this roster, I think he could earn a role in the future if the Sixers decide to have him as a bench player. And they're going to need a player like this, Chip, because with the most cap space in the NBA, Max Steele, that's coming this upcoming summer. I'm telling you right now. And then another player, you're not going to have a lot of money for your bench pieces. So a player like Ricky Council is going to be counted on. He's shown flashes in those little limited minutes. Should he play a bigger role over the veteran players?
Yeah, I love Ricky Council, and as you said, I do think he has a great future, hopefully with the 76ers. But when I look at this team, man, they're preparing to hopefully make a playoff run, right? At this moment, Ricky Council, he's not even on a standard NBA contract, so he wouldn't even be allowed to play in the playoffs. I think they've seen enough from him, in my opinion. I think they've seen enough to want to re-sign him in the offseason, but they know he's not really going to be contributing in the playoffs.
Right.
Nick Nurse especially, he has these vets who, you still have Melton who's out, you still have Covington who's out. By the way, Covington was supposed to be back by now easily, and we haven't heard a thing about Covington.
No.
But I just don't see Ricky Council cracking the rotation over some of these forwards like Oubre, Batum, even though he hasn't been as good, Tobias Harris, Paul Reed. We saw DJ Wilson give some good minutes last night.
Right.
There's just not really enough room for him, unfortunately. But I do think going forward, he could be a decent rotational player for the Sixers.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I understand kind of the thought process and the approach from Nick Nurse. Let's go to Inquisitive 44. We just need to make sure we have Kelly Oubre's money right. He's earned a hefty contract, a Philly kind of guy too. He fits. I like the player. I like the fire that he plays with. I like the energy. I kind of like the swagger that he has. Now, sometimes the swagger can lead to him just taking some ill-advised shots and just chucking at times. I think the history is out that he's a very inconsistent up-and-down player, but as a bench rotation type, you could certainly do worse this year so far. 15 points per game, 44% from the field, 30% from three. When you watch him all year, you're like, man, I'm actually surprised that the field goal numbers are lower because he's hit a couple of big buckets. He's had a couple of big games. But again, that just goes to show you when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's pretty bad. Unfortunately for Philadelphia here, I think Oubre is a player who is going to want to get paid because he wants to make up for some of the money that he lost this year when he signed so late for a very low deal. Like, he could get $12 to $15 million on the open market, and keep in mind, some of these bad teams across the NBA, they will just give players a ridiculous amount of money because they have the money, they're awful, and they need somebody to put the ball in the hoop. Kelly Oubre has been able to do that. It's been good to see him fit on a winning team and have a big role on a winning team. When he was with the Warriors a couple of years ago, it was kind of ugly, and you could tell he was a little bit unhappy. If you want to get on the show, we've been doing more of these mailbags because you've all responded so well to them, and they're getting really good views. So let's continue to take your questions and make this a staple of the program. Subscribe, and be sure to look out for the community tab on the YouTube channel here. You see home, video, shorts, community. You click that community tab right here on YouTube. That's when we post some of these mailbag calls. That's how you can get involved.